Okay, this is a video for those who don't understand why I like the Final Fantasy VII Extended Universe the best. And I guess I'll explain why. First, they put backstory in it that should have been in the original game in the first place. Most people have a common misconception of not liking the series or anything like that because the new characters. So we're going to start with technically the beginning. This is not about release date. This would be the beginning date, which would be Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core for the PSP system. You probably can get on PS Vita if you download it for PSN, but it's only going to be for Vita. I don't know if they're going to make a copy on the PS4, but hope they do. But this is where you play as a first-class soldier named Zack. Zack is the man you see on the cover. He gives the Buster Sword to Cloud. And that's how Cloud. This game's technically how Cloud got his Buster Sword. That's pretty much what this game is. Now, people didn't like it because of the new character Genesis, because people say, "Oh, he's an emo poet." And so what if he is? I like the character Genesis because Genesis is the one who set everything up. Not just Hojo, but if it wasn't for Genesis pushing Sephiroth by telling Sephiroth he's a monster, Sephiroth wouldn't have burnt Nibelheim down, had that legendary scene. So Genesis is kind of responsible for some of the events in Final Fantasy VII as much as Hojo is. But you wouldn't do that, you wouldn't believe that if you didn't like the extended universe. But I guess to me, I wouldn't call this extended universe. I call it canon to the game because this is exactly everything that happened in Final Fantasy VII. The reason they couldn't put everything that happened before because the game was too long. So they made a game separate for that, which I'm glad. This is actually one of my original PSP games. And I still have my PSP, so when I go out, I can still play it. And I play it like 15 times when I'm out, sometimes. Now, after that, years after Zack's death, Cloud gets the Buster Sword. And then you already know what happens in Final Fantasy VII, which is the original. This is not the extended universe. This is the original Final Fantasy VII, which people say this is only canon, but I don't believe that. I believe the whole entire trilogy of Final Fantasy VII is canon to each other. For me, I'm a fan that believes in the whole entire extended universe, because it's the extended universe by Square Enix, by Tetsuya Nomura. Even Sakaguchi approves of the extended universe, but this is the original. Everyone says only this is canon, and I could see a little bit why. This is the best video game on the planet, in my opinion. I like the stories, the characters, etc., etc. With the characters, I actually could feel like them. I actually feel for the characters like if they're real people. So I understand. This is like the best thing I've ever played, best game I ever played, best graduation present I ever got. Hence why I'm obsessed with the medium. But yes, after Cloud defeats Sephiroth and, that story's finished, would be considered an extended universe because this was a sequel. This doesn't have any backstory to the original. I mean, they put some backstory from this game to here, like when they fought Sephiroth and the Northern Craven. You see a little bit of the battle where Avalanche was fighting Sephiroth, and you see Sephiroth trying to finish Cloud finishing Sephiroth like you didn't hear. But this is what I'd call an extended universe. Except this one don't put too much backstory. Only backstory from this game, but in high def and high quality. This one is when Sephiroth splits into 3 different people. They're called remnants. And then, after Genova cells, they gain from Rufus Shinra. Yes, spoiler, he's still alive. After they gain that, Kadaj, the leader of the remnants, turns into Sephiroth. Cloud has to fight him again to save the world because the world's under the stigma. It's pretty much a viral disease that's killing everybody off, that Sephiroth created when he fused with the life stream. So Cloud has to stop him again to get rid of the stigma, and he finishes him off once and for all. Because now, not only Sephiroth's gone, but the remnants are gone too, so there's no other way of creating Sephiroth. Except if you count Dissidia-verse. If you count Dissidia-verse, then Sephiroth can respawn, or Kingdom Hearts-verse. But if you're a straight-up Final Fantasy fan like me, it doesn't matter what canon you go through, it's still the same. Canon is canon. If Square Enix puts their label on it, to be honest, and they claim it, it's canon to me. So I don't really care. It's canon to me if Square Enix puts a label on it. So yeah, it's all canon. The city and all that. It's just, and Kingdom Hearts is still canon because Square Enix says it's canon. So I don't understand why you guys bash the extended universe. Now after that, a few years later, one of the characters gets their own game. My boy Vincent Valentine gets his own game. People hate this one because it doesn't play like an RPG. It's more like Metal Gear Solid, Devil May Cry. I'm trying to think. On the top of my head. Not Perfect Dark. I'm trying to think. What's that one I just got? I forgot. That one game the girl. It's by Rockstar. I forget what it's called, but I have it. It's in my collection, but it's like perfect. Look, I'm trying to think of the game. Oh, Oni. Yeah, it's like Oni, Devil May Cry, Metal Gear, with the gameplay. You control Vincent Valentine. Now, Vincent Valentine isn't, even though he's the main character of Dirge of Cerberus. He becomes, he's already main character in Final Fantasy VII, but you play as Vincent. But not only you get his background story, with this one you also get Sephiroth's background story because it shows you cutscenes from the past and full HD as how everything happened. Lucretia gave birth to Sephiroth. Sephiroth was taken away and trained to be a soldier, by the scientist Hojo. But, only to be a training experiment to become the best soldier. And that's how it happened. It puts that in there. It even shows the cutscene after Lucretia dies, or Lucretia, no matter what canon you go through. It shows after when she dies, the scene where she just, falls to the ground. Sephiroth, you see Sephiroth walking the flames like a badass, like you do in the original Final Fantasy VII. The iconic Sephiroth scene in here. So they do have some... Okay, they have some, even though there's new characters like Vistate Cumulant, the Sphiets, and Deep Ground, and, Reeve is actually a main character, like he was a side character in Final Fantasy VII, he's a main character. It's still a good game because this puts even more backstory. Like, if you count this with Crisis Core, it will make Final Fantasy VII make a lot of sense. It would make, put this together with Crisis Core, and everything will make sense of why Final Fantasy VII is the way it is. Even though you play as Vincent and this is years later, it's still pretty good because you get to see Sephiroth's backstory and Vincent's, and you get to see some of the Shinra company's backstories. Like, Shinra had a group called Deep Ground, which, if you played Crisis Core, they were trapped underground. I mean, this is when and this is where Genesis comes into play, why Genesis is such an important character. Because when you earn the secret ending in Dirge of Cerberus, when you collect all the G reports, everything was planned out by Genesis, because you see Genesis in a cavern holding Vice's body up, holding Vice's corpse, and he was like, "Brother, we've got some work to do." My brother. Sorry, I got a little into it, but there's a reason why that Genesis was supposed to survive, and he got resurrected in this one. So everything was planned by Genesis. All the Final Fantasy VII games were actually planned by Genesis. Hojo was the only co-conspirator. Genesis also planned everything out. As it is, he planned that Sephiroth would try to destroy the planet Final Fantasy VII, and Cloud would stop him. He planned that the remnants would come back, to recreate Sephiroth's dream of revenge. And he knew that Deep Ground would come out and be defeated again, just like Avalanche did defeat Deep Ground, even though it was Vincent solely taking on the elite members. Still, Genesis actually plans Final Fantasy VII. Without Genesis, Rhapsodus, there wouldn't be no Final Fantasy VII. Without him, even though I don't like Hojo, thanks to Hojo and Genesis, even though I don't like Hojo, thanks to those two characters, Final Fantasy VII was possible. Even though, really, Genesis did this subconsciously. Like, he wasn't conscious he created this whole rip, but he did. From Crisis Core to Dirge of Cerberus. And if you put all together, that's why I like the whole entire extended Final Fantasy VII